Hi, this is Tim from Organic Backyard Gardening. I've been starting seeds indoors for years to get a head start on my growing season and to save money on having to buy them at a nursery. In this short video, I'm going to take you through the 10 key steps to growing seeds indoors and mistakes to avoid, from what you need to what temperatures to set them at, from what to do after they germinate, lighting, watering, setting them out. If you're a beginner, this is perfect for you, and if you're an experienced gardener, you may learn some tricks. The first thing you'll need are containers, and I like to use these plastic seed cells. What I typically do is use these smaller ones for most of my seeds. Now these are about 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. I like them because they're deep and they allow the roots to go down. And I'll start my peppers, tomatoes in these. And then when the roots start to get to the bottom, I'll then up pot them to a larger pot. Now if I'm putting like kale or other seeds in here and I want to put them directly in the garden while the plants are not that big, I'll just leave them in here and put them out in the garden like this. If I start kale a lot sooner and I want some larger transplants, I'll start them in a larger cell like this. The plastic is great because you can reuse it each year. Now there are some more like eco-friendly compostable containers that you can use. However, I found that sometimes these break down and you can't reuse them year after year. Next thing you'll need, a plastic container to put all your cells in. I like these containers that are fairly thick. These measure in at 21 inches by 11 inches. Another option is this larger tray here. The next thing you'll need is a cover to keep them moist, germinate. And these trays are perfect because you can get little domes here that'll keep them moist when they're germinating. Now, if you don't have a dome, you can also use saran wrap, and I'll show you how that'll work after. Next thing you'll need are some markers. You can use plastic markers, or you can use popsicle sticks and a good pen. This pen is actually the garden marker, and I like this because it can get wet, it doesn't run. Last but not least, you'll need some seed starters. So I really like this one by Coast of Maine. And the reason I like this is it has a lot of great ingredients. It's lobster meal, kelp meal, and compost. Now, when you're starting seeds at the beginning to germinate, they don't really need too many nutrients. However, when they start to grow, they definitely need nutrients. If you start off with a really good soil, you'll then have some really good plants. Using something like this, and I just bought this to show you guys, if you're using like Jiffy, there's really not much in here. There's peat moss, vermiculite, and this is really just the medium. So really, if you're using something like this, you never really have to worry about fertilizing your plants. And with organic gardening, that's the thing. We like to keep things simple. And if you start with a strong soil, even out in the garden, you're never feeding your plants. You're always feeding the soil. So there's a lot of different, you don't have to get this kind. There's a lot of other great options out there. Now that we've talked about all the items you need, let's talk about starting your seeds at the right time. So when to start your seeds. If you want to find out when to start your seeds, you'll have to figure out when your last expected frost date is for your area. Each seed will be started at different times according to your last expected frost. If you need help, this is an output from the PlanMyGarden service. So if you want help planning your garden, you can go to the link below and you can go to PlanMyGarden. You enter your zip code, you draw your garden layout, and then you will enter what you want to grow for vegetables and how many. We'll then give you a custom schedule for your location, and we'll take in your custom layout and we'll populate it with optimal plant placement for each of the vegetables you selected. We'll get you a getting started guide. We'll also give you a grow guide for each vegetable. So you can see here, these are times when you would start seeds in relation to the last expected frost date. So for example, onions, kale, a lot of these would be started sooner, and then your warm weather crops like cucumbers would be started closer to your last expected frost date. So it's critical to start your seeds at the right time. The next step is getting the right soil consistency. So I usually take my pot, put it in the sink, and then I'll pour my seed starting mix. So I'm starting with the Jiffy here. It's very, very light and fine. So what you want to do is you want to add some water into it. I actually don't recommend this mix, but I'm just showing you. And you're going to mix it around so you can kind of make a ball with it. So now we'll then put that into our seed cell. Just put the cell inside of the pot. Just a little bit in each one. You don't have to push it too much. You can just put it in there lightly. This is great to do this in the sink. It doesn't really make a mess. Just wash out any mess you make. And I like to have my tray right next to me. And I'll pop these into the tray. Make a little bit more here. There we go. And that's one full cell. Next, I'll show you quickly the Coast of Maine product. We'll put some in here, and you're gonna see that this is much darker and it's heavier in here. So just add a little bit of water with this compost type mix. And you'll see it gets pretty good here. Just a little bit more. All right. I'll take my seed cell and same thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do the rest of these. It's time to start planting. I'm gonna be planting kale today. Two types of kale, dinosaur kale and dartboard kale. So the next step is just take your finger and place an indentation in each cell. Before I start planting, I like to actually mark each cell with what they are. It can get very confusing if you have a lot of different plants. This is really other key tip here is these seeds. Actually, this is actually the rest of the pack. I don't have very many left. Now, these seeds are very small. I'm going to be planting 2 per cell because some may not germinate. So by putting 2, I increase my chances of having them germinate. Once they do grow, if 2 grows, I'm just gonna cut the weakest one out. Gently just put the 2 seeds in each cell. Now, you're just gonna cover them up very lightly. Perfect. Now, just to be sure that these are moist enough, I'm going to take it over to the sink, put them in the sink, and I'm just going to lightly spray each cell. Okay, now the next step is to keep them moist. Now, we've already moistened them up, and now if we put a dome on them, they should stay moist until they germinate. They shouldn't really dry out with a dome. Now, if you don't have a dome, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this with saran wrap. Now, sometimes it's tricky when you have these little markers in there, if they're pointing out too high. I actually cut these down, so we'll just take your saran wrap, put it over just like that. You want to keep these at a room temperature at around 75 degrees, generally for most seeds. Now you'll have to remember each seed is designed to germinate at different temperatures. They have different optimal temperatures. Cool weather crops, such as kale and spinach, their seeds will germinate at cooler temperatures since they will sprout earlier in the spring. The warm crops, such as peppers and tomatoes, they will germinate at much warmer temperatures. I do have a chart on my website, you can click the link below, and that will show you more optimal temperatures for each seed. And by giving each seed the optimal temperature, you'll give them the lowest germination time. So for example, if you have kale at an optimal temperature, it may germinate in 5 days. But if they're not at the optimal temperature, they may take up to 10 or 15 days. So by keeping up the right temperature, you're speeding up the germination time. Another tool you can use is a heat mat. And a heat mat is a really simple device. It has a plug. This warms up. I put the tray right on here and it will warm up the soil. Now, if you have this plugged in it all the time, you may not know what temperature everything is running at. So there's this little device, and you can use these on any heat mat. This is a thermostat. Take the plug to the heat mat, you plug this into the controller, And then you have a probe. The probe goes right in to the soil to keep track of the soil temperature. So this little controller here is showing you, okay, I'm heating right now, the power's on. Right now it's at 71 degrees. It may take a few minutes to identify soil temperature, but you can set it to a specific temperature. So let's say I have peppers, which need a much warmer soil. I can set to 85, set, and then let's say there's peppers in here, and it will keep them at a constant 85 degrees. The seeds that require a higher temperature, this is definitely helpful. So we're going to put these in a warm location and check back in on them when they start to germinate. As soon as the seedlings start to sprout, take off the cover. You'll want to do this to avoid dampening off, which is a condition that can kill seedlings if they stay too moist after sprouting. If your seedlings haven't germinated after a few days, reference our helpful chart, Seed Germination Times by Temperatures. Now is the time to provide light. You want to put them on a south-facing window, but a lot of times that isn't enough light in the winter. I place them under my Mars Hydro Growlight and keep the Growlight at about 6 inches above the seedlings. I use a wall outlet timer to keep the light on anywhere from 14 to 16 hours a day. However, it is critical to give the seedlings a period of darkness in order for them to fully thrive. If you have multiple seedlings growing in the same cell, after a couple days you can cut them down to keep the strongest seedling. If you're finding this video helpful, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. When the cells start to dry out, you'll want to water them in cycles. You want to do this because if you keep them too wet, they could develop mold. And that's not good for the seeds. So what I like to do is water them from the bottom. These cells have holes in the bottom, and when you put water into the bottom of the tray, they'll start to siphon the water up. As soon as the tops dry out, I know that it's time to add more water. I found this process works the best. I've used things in the past like self-watering mats, but those only caused problems by keeping the soil too wet. Once all the cells have absorbed the water, I dump out the rest into the sink. If you have a dry area, it might be a good idea to also have a humidifier in the room and a small fan to circulate airflow. While your plants are growing indoors, they're very used to the stable temperature, and they're not used to seeing the bright sunlight. So what you need to do each day is give them a little bit more exposure outdoor to get used to this new climate. For the first couple days, make sure they don't receive direct sunlight. By looking at your plant out date, you can figure out when to start this process. For cool weather crops, you transplant out ahead of your last frost date. Where warm weather crops like eggplants and tomatoes and peppers are typically transplanted out after your last expected frost date. If you follow these simple steps, you'll be on your way to really strong seedlings. Don't forget to check out all our other videos, including how to transplant seedlings into the garden, 6 key steps, and mistakes to avoid. I'll put a link in the description below. Please click the subscribe button and the bell to be notified when we post new videos. PlanMyGarden makes it really easy for you to plan your garden in a few simple steps. Enter your zip code, draw your garden layout, select what vegetables you want to grow and how much space you want to allocate to each. Check out, and then we'll send you an email with a PDF that has a visual schedule for each vegetable you selected, a getting started guide, a grow guide for each vegetable selected, and your garden layout updated with optimal plant placements for maximum yields.